The Commission of Jurists, ICJ Kenya, is calling for the abolition of the death penalty in Kenya. This comes as the world marks the 10th of October against the death penalty, with this year's theme dubbed Women Behind Bars and the Invisible Reality, with the main focus being on women on death row. Sarafina walks us through the legal aspect of capital punishment in Kenya and the world.
The last known Kenyan to have been executed in 1987 after being sentenced to death for treason alongside Pancras Oteyo Okumu. Ochuka was accused of planning and executing the 1982 military coup and ruled Kenya for 6 hours. Countries that execute persons sentenced to death use firing squad, hanging, electrocution, lethal injections, being boiled alive, burnt to the stake, among others. According to Amnesty International, the year 2020 saw most known executions take place in China, Iran, Egypt, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. In 1987, Kenya established a moratorium on execution, commuting such sentences to life imprisonment.
In Kenya, the death penalty is not practiced. The death execution is not handed down. However, the death sentence is still being handed down. So this makes Kenya a de facto abolitionist.
Raising awareness on the plight of convicts on death row led to the recognition of the October 10th as the World Day Against Death Penalty. The event seeks to abolish death penalty.
It's a day set aside to remember the plight of victims, to highlight the plight of victims who are on death row, and to also urge states which are yet to abolish the death penalty, including countries like Kenya, to abolish the death penalty.
Progress on this front was made in Kenya in 2017 when Francis Muratitu and Wilson Mwangi appealed against the death sentence, and the Supreme Court declared the mandatory nature of the death penalty as unconstitutional.
The decision, and reaffirmed that, the decision that was rendered by the Supreme Court was not to the extent that it abolished the death penalty in Kenya. It did not abolish the death sentence in Kenya, because the issue was the constitutionality of the mandatory nature and not the constitutionality of the death penalty in Kenya.
Focusing on women on death row in this year's theme is relevant, as for over 1,000 inmates on death sentence in Kenya, 598 are women.
Impact of the death sentence on both male and female are actually different. So there's a variation in the gendered impact of the death sentence. That's why this year we've narrowed down on women.
In a continent where 9 countries still undertake executions, Kenya's efforts are laudable, even though there is still room for improvement.
Even the state has actually taken some efforts, deliberate steps towards commuting sentences. This started with Mwai Kibaki, I think around 2009, where he commuted a number of persons who were on death row to life imprisonment. And similarly, his predecessor, President Uhuru Kenyatta, I think around 2015-2016, commuted a number of persons who were on death row, about 2,474 persons, to life imprisonment. So there are certain steps that the state is actually taking towards abolition of the death penalty.
The United Nations system as a whole opposes the use of death penalty in all circumstances. As different organizations and civil societies continue to push for legislative reforms on the death penalty, all offenders that had been subjected to the mandatory death sentence, including those that had been convicted and sentenced prior to 2010 who are serving commuted sentence, are eligible for resentencing, according to directions issued by the Supreme Court on the Muratitu case. Sarafina for Sunday Express.